August Richard Schwabenland, a name that should have simply been attached to ordinary days, family dinners, and the familiar routine of small-town Oregon life. But instead, it became the name tied to one of the most haunting mysteries along the Rogue River. It was November 13th, 2004, a Saturday like any other. August, 56 years old, carried on with his day as if nothing was out of place. He was last seen just 3.5 miles upriver from the Gold Beach jetty, where he stopped to withdraw $200 from an ATM. A simple, ordinary task, something we've all done countless times without thinking twice. But for August, this would be the last confirmed trace of his existence. After that, silence, no phone calls, no visits to friends or family, no sign of his 1998 Buick LeSabre. It was as though both man and machine had been swallowed whole by the earth. By November 16th, his family reported him missing, and just like that, the clock began ticking on what would become a 2-decade-long nightmare. Theories emerged quickly. Some believed August may have suffered an accident along the winding, unforgiving roads that snake beside the Rogue River. Others whispered that he may have been avoiding law enforcement due to a medical issue that altered his judgment. But those were just theories. The truth, the real story of what happened that night, remained just out of reach. For the people who loved him, each day that passed without answers wasn't just time slipping away, it was torment. Birthdays came and went. Holidays passed with an empty chair at the table. 20 years of not knowing whether August was alive or gone forever. And the most chilling part, the Rogue River kept its secrets well. Locals often said the current was a thief, pulling down what it wanted and burying it under rocks, silt, and silence. If August had gone into those waters, the river had done its job, hiding him in its depths for decades. This isn't just the story of a man who went missing. This is the story of a family forced to live in limbo. A story of roads that led nowhere and waters that gave back no answers. And as the years passed, one question only grew louder. Where is August Richard Schwabenland? When August Richard Schwabenland was reported missing on November 16, 2004, the small coastal town of Gold Beach, Oregon, shifted overnight. For outsiders, Gold Beach was a peaceful dot on the map, known for fishing trips, winding roads, and the wild beauty of the Rogue River. But for those who lived there, it was also the kind of place where everyone knew everyone. News didn't just travel fast, it spread like fire. And the news that August had vanished, that spread with unease. Police began their search with the obvious starting point, the last confirmed sighting. November 13th, ATM, cash withdrawal. Witnesses confirmed seeing him upriver, and then nothing. It was as though August had stepped into a void. His 1998 Buick LeSabre was missing too, which made the search even more complicated. If the car had crashed or gone into the water, there should have been signs, tire marks on the shoulder, broken guardrails, shattered glass, but the roads offered nothing. The landscape mocked investigators with its silence. The Rogue River, on the other hand, was another beast entirely. Locals called it unpredictable. The current was strong, pulling debris and sometimes people far downstream before anyone could even react. Some whispered that August's car could be lying beneath the cold, dark water, hidden under layers of silt and stone. Others insisted that a crash wasn't the only possibility. Because August's life wasn't without its complications, rumors spread that he'd been struggling with a medical issue, one that could have left him disoriented, paranoid, or unwilling to face law enforcement. To some, that explained why he might have taken an unusual route home that day, but speculation is just that, speculation. And for his family, it brought no comfort. Detectives faced a frustrating reality. On paper, August's disappearance looked like a possible accident, but the total lack of physical evidence made it almost impossible to prove. They searched the riverbanks, combed through wooded trails, and checked the remote roads between the jetty and his home. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and the only thing that grew was the silence. His family was left clinging to fragments. Did he drive into the water that night? Was there foul play involved? Could he still be alive somewhere, just gone by choice? But that last thought cut the deepest, because if August had chosen to walk away, it meant he was out there, somewhere, choosing not to come home. And for a family in pain, that was almost harder to bear than the thought of an accident. The Buick LeSabre became a ghost of its own. Searchers and locals alike scoured the rogue, watching the surface and wondering if it hid the truth. A fisherman claimed there was a deep hole in the river that might have trapped a vehicle years ago. Others swore they had seen old wreckage hidden in the depths. But every lead ended the same: uncertainty. As time passed, the case cooled. Without a body, without a car, and without a shred of new evidence, investigators had little more than a question mark on their hands. Families of the missing often describe it as living with a wound that never closes. For August's loved ones, that wound bled every single day. By the first anniversary of his disappearance, the whispers had grown louder. Some said August had fled his life. Others said the rogue had swallowed him whole. The one fact everyone agreed on was this: August Richard Schwabenland was gone. But in towns like Gold Beach, mysteries never really fade. They linger. People remember. And for every year that passed, August's name came back around. Quietly, in coffee shops, in riverside conversations, in families who refused to stop hoping. And then, nearly 2 decades later, a new wave of searchers would return to those same waters, this time armed with technology and determination that simply hadn't existed in 2004. But before we get there, we have to sit with the reality of those first years. The heartbreak, the confusion, the way time stood still for his family, but the rest of the world kept moving on. Because that's what makes cases like August's so devastating. The feeling of being stuck in one unanswered moment while life refuses to wait. August Schwabenland had disappeared into the night, and the Rogue River wasn't giving up its secrets easily. For most missing persons cases, the first days are the most critical. If answers don't come quickly, the chances of resolution start to wither. That's exactly what happened with August Richard Schwabenland. After the initial searches turned up nothing, no car, no body, not even a piece of clothing, the case slipped into that dangerous space where silence grows heavier than evidence. The Schwabenland family was left with what every family of the missing dreads most: the not knowing. Every ringing phone became a moment of panic. Every knock at the door carried a flicker of hope that maybe, just maybe, it was August. But instead of clarity, the weeks turned into months, and the months into years. And with each passing season, the reality became sharper. August wasn't coming home, at least not in the way they had hoped. Gold Beach wasn't a big city. It was the kind of place where you ran into familiar faces at the grocery store, where conversations drifted easily from weather to fishing to local gossip. And in those conversations, August's name never disappeared. People remembered the quiet man who vanished after pulling out $200 at an ATM, and they couldn't help but speculate. Some swore it had to be the Rogue River. They described how fast its waters moved, how deep its hidden pockets ran. They whispered about cars lost in the river's depths, rusting unseen, waiting for someone to find them. Others pointed to August's personal struggles, convinced that maybe he had decided to walk away from his old life. But for his family, those whispers were torment. Because no matter which theory you believed, accident or escape, both left them without the one thing they needed most: answers. The empty chair at the dinner table, the unopened Christmas gifts. The birthdays marked not by celebration, but by grief. It's the kind of pain you can't explain unless you've lived it. The pain of absence that feels louder than presence ever did. Detectives did what they could, but without new evidence, the file eventually grew cold. August's name remained on missing persons databases, but the case slipped from active rotation. Like so many others, it became a ghost story, still there, still unresolved, but buried under fresher tragedies. And yet, for the Schwabenland family, time never softened the wound. Every drive past the Rogue River was a reminder. Every headline about a body found elsewhere forced them to hold their breath until they knew whether or not it was him. And every year that passed without him only made the questions sharper. Was he alone when it happened? Did he suffer? Could someone out there still know something they're not telling us? By the 10th year, the silence was deafening. By the 15th, the case felt frozen in place. But in the background, something was changing, quietly, steadily. Technology was advancing. Sonar imaging was getting sharper. Remote-operated vehicles were becoming more accessible. What wasn't possible in 2004 was becoming possible in the 2020s. The river that had swallowed August without a trace might not be able to keep its secrets forever. And while the Schwabenlands endured their grief, the stage was quietly being set for a new kind of search, one that would return to the very waters people had feared all along. Nearly 20 years after August, Richard Schwabenland disappeared, the Rogue River still ran fast and unforgiving, as though determined to keep its secrets. For years, locals had whispered about its depths, a place where cars and boats, and sometimes even lives, were swallowed whole, hidden under silt and rock where no one could see. If August had gone into that river, it was like searching for a ghost in a graveyard of steel. But time had changed the tools of the search. By the 2020s, sonar technology had advanced in ways that investigators in 2004 could only have dreamed of. Instead of grainy outlines and guesswork, the latest side-scan sonar could paint the riverbed with a near-photographic precision. Remote-operated vehicles, equipped with cameras and lights, could dive into holes too dangerous for divers. Even custom RC boats carrying sonar could explore smaller, overlooked waters where a full-size boat could never go. The new search began where logic and heartache had always pointed: the waterways near Gold Beach. If August had never made it home, then the river was the most likely suspect. The search plan was simple in theory, but in practice, it was grueling. The team mapped out the Rogue River in sections, targeting high-probability zones. That meant sharp bends in the waterway, boat ramps, and deep holes where a vehicle might rest unseen. It wasn't just about equipment, it was about patience. The currents were strong, the rocks uneven, the sonar screens filled with shapes that could easily trick the eye. One moment, a scan would reveal what looked like the outline of a car. The next, it would dissolve into nothing more than natural debris. Every potential hit had to be confirmed, and if necessary, dived on. At one point, a local resident stepped forward with a story. He claimed that for years, people had talked about a car resting in one of the deep holes upriver. A rumor passed along, repeated in hushed tones. Some said it was a Volkswagen, others weren't sure. But nobody had ever gone down there to look. That tip couldn't be ignored. The team turned their sonar toward the location, letting the equipment sweep slowly back and forth. The screen flickered with the jagged lines of the riverbed. Then, there it was, a shape, rectangular, solid, buried but undeniably foreign to the natural landscape. The current made diving dangerous, so they deployed a remote-operated vehicle, its lights cutting through the murky darkness. Slowly, the camera descended into the hole, past drifting branches and clouds of silt. And then, metal, a roofline, a vehicle that had been there for years, hidden from the world. But was it August's Buick, or just another ghost in the water? As the camera panned across, the details became clearer. The size seemed smaller, boxier than a Buick LeSabre. The suspicion of the locals was confirmed. The sunken vehicle matched more closely to an older Volkswagen, long rusted and mangled by time. It wasn't August. Disappointing? Yes. But useless? Not at all. Every "not him" brought the search closer to the truth. Every cleared section of the Rogue River narrowed the possibilities. And most importantly, it proved something his family had long believed. The answers were out there, waiting, beneath the surface. For the first time in nearly 2 decades, August's case wasn't just a name in a dusty file. It was alive again. The waters stirred. The questions reopened. The Rogue River might have kept him hidden for 20 years, but now, finally, the river had met its match. For nearly 20 years, August Richard Schwabenland's name was carried on the lips of his family like a prayer. Every holiday, every birthday, every empty chair at the dinner table was a reminder of the man they had lost, and the questions that had never been answered. But the search for August proved something powerful. Time does not erase love. It does not erase memory. And it does not erase determination. Clearing sections of the Rogue River meant more than just checking boxes on a map. It meant restoring faith to a family that had lived in limbo for decades. It meant proving that no case is too old, no story too forgotten, and no person too unimportant to search for. Each sonar scan, each dive, each pass of the river chipped away at the silence that had surrounded his case for so long. And while his Buick LeSabre has not yet been found, the waters no longer feel infinite. The mystery no longer feels impossible. Because with modern technology, teamwork, and persistence, the places that once hid secrets are slowly being revealed. And that's the gift of searches like this one. Even when the day ends without a recovery, it brings hope. It tells August's family, and families like theirs across the country, that people still care, that the missing are not forgotten, that one day, perhaps sooner than anyone dares to believe, the truth will finally rise to the surface. Because August's story isn't just about loss, it's about holding on when the world tells you to let go. It's about community, compassion, and the relentless pursuit of truth. And it's about us, together, making sure these stories are told. So, if this story moved you, if you believe in bringing answers to families who have been waiting far too long, then I ask you to do one simple thing: subscribe to this channel. Every time you subscribe, every time you share these stories, you help push them further. You help ensure that families like August's don't have to wait in silence. And you help us shine a light into the darkest corners where hope still lingers, waiting to be found. August Richard Schwabenland is still out there somewhere. His story isn't finished, and together, we will not stop searching. So please, hit that subscribe button, join us on this journey, and let's bring the missing home.